Okay, I'll do roll call now. Nicole Green,
Aye.
Ozzy Carter,
Present.
and Reverend Van Hook.
He said present in chat.
Okay, thank you. All members present, we have quorum to begin the meeting.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. We'll go ahead and get started with number 1 on the agenda. Any introductions or and announcements? I don't have any to present, but I will. Any of the members have any introductions or announcements? No? Okay, we open it up to any next one on the agenda, any public comment or any announcements or allow, well, we know you, Jill and Crawford. So do any of you have any announcements that you'd like to add before we move on? Very small group today. Okay, no, okay.
Do you want us to just introduce ourselves? I can call off. I can start with the cab members to introduce themselves, then the rest of us, if you like.
Is it required since we know each other, but we can't? If this is gonna record.
No, it's not necessarily required. That's just what we've done.
Okay.
However, people can just say hi in the chat if you like, if you want to just go ahead and proceed.
Yeah, I'll proceed. It's I don't, and forgive me if you see any additional faces that I don't, I just see.
No.
Okay, so
It's
I'll
6
just,
of us, yeah.
so you can introduce yourself in the chat if you would like. Are the other CAB members okay with me? Not CAB, but any subcommittee members okay with me moving forward without intros? Okay. Okay. So going on to the next one, approval of the minutes from our July 15th CAB policy and budget subcommittee. So we'll go ahead, and that's on page 4. We can go ahead and review those really quickly.
Sorry. Joseph. His birthday is 10/10/83.
Okay, so I'll just open up for any discussion, any feedback or discussion around our minutes from our last meeting, or if not, any motion to approve.
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion for the approval of the minutes from
Thank you.
our last meeting in July,
So we have Ozzy that
July 15th. Thank you.
No problem. That is motion. Do I have a second? I can't see the chat if Julius put in the chat. Okay, and Julius second the motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, and I can do a roll call for the vote.
Okay.
So Nicole Green,
Aye.
Ozzy Carter,
Aye.
and Reverend Van Hook.
Okay, he eyed the chat.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So we'll go ahead and move to agenda item number 4, which is debrief of the presentation on behavioral health housing overview. So I wanted to add that to the agenda today. Unfortunately, I was not at the previous CAB meeting, but did want to get the subcommittee members' feedback for those that were there on that presentation and what you heard from that. So I know that we included the PowerPoint in here, so we could take a second and kind of look through that. That starts at page 7.
Yes.
Okay. So we can go ahead and start. So I'm very familiar with the mental health housing, so I'm not sure if, I know Crawford, you was on vacation with me, so you wasn't there, but Ozzy or Reverend Van Hook, were you how did you like the presentations that or did it bring up any questions for you, what they went over at the general CAB meeting.
I found the presentation very informative in that this is really a new item to be brought before me to actually really get some inside information on how mental health services are provided across the county. There's one thing that did spark my attention, and that was you scroll through the next pages where AOD talked about their residences, also known as sober living environments, SLEs. And my question, because of something that Denise spoke about in reference to the SLEs not being up to par. And I'm kind of really concerned about that and what that looks like. So it's kind of like, I have done some due diligence and visited an SLE maybe 45 days ago. And I was very impressed because obviously it was different from the norm. Excuse me, my window's open and I live on a very busy street in downtown Pittsburgh. But my concern is where the shortfalls are in these SLEs, and especially since it's required, and a lot of our clientele have mental health issues. And I'm just kind of really concerned what the pitfalls are, because I heard that as a blanket statement. So if anyone has any input and can give me some feedback, I would appreciate that. And I know that I sit on the AOD board, yes. And that's why I've become interested in the SLEs. So I just need further clarity on what they are and the shortfalls.
Do you see the smile on my face? Housing is like my love. I can answer all those questions for you. It would be nice to have some more presentations on that. And I'm very excited that you actually sit on the board. These are different questions that I personally had also spoke to Fatima and the board about to address some of your questions. That is one of the major issues, and which is why I agree with Crawford around more funding is needed for mental health, because in my opinion, sober living environments are not, they're not structured for mental health. A sober living environment is exactly what it is. It's meant for someone that's going through recovery, not mental health. So we have individuals that are dealing with co-occurring, I can't talk on Friday, co-occurring issues that cannot be addressed in a sober living environment. Unfortunately, there isn't any type of shared housing that is around both addressing sober living and or mental health. So it's one or the other. So from my experience being a previous housing provider, when we had an individual that would go into a sober living environment, our responsibility was to look and provide those mental health services outside of that sober living environment. So as of right now, today, there isn't anything that meshes it together. When it comes to the housing, I definitely do agree with you in SLEs. Those are one of the things that I had spoke to Fatima about before I actually went over to this job. There isn't any guidelines. I know at one point, and Patricia's not here, but at one point ORJ was working on some guidelines and structures for SLEs to follow that were never actually put out yet. I did try to work on that with Fatima. So one of the major issues are there are no guidelines for SLEs to follow. There is no map or no requirement for them to sign up. If someone wanted to, I'm going to be honest, I used to sign up, put people in SLEs. If you wanted to build an SLE at this particular point, there is no structure. You just have to have a business and a plan, and people can start being placed in your house. So in my opinion, in order to get this, I really think you need to go back to that drawing board where Dante Blue left off with ORJ, putting in those guidelines on how SLEs should be structured, what the expectations are, insurance, house managers, hours, staff, and then we will be able to help our population. Right now, there isn't any, there isn't no requirements at all. The good thing with inpatient though, majority of these houses on here, they talked about Oxford and Okima, those are the inpatient SLEs that they go to, and then they transition out to the outpatient. So in my opinion, the real issues are with the outpatients after they transition from the inpatient. Does that make sense? So an individual can come out of jail and go into inpatient treatment because we have AODS in here and get the services they need. And then they transition to an outpatient where the ball kind of drops. And then that mental health piece kind of drops. So there is a lot of work that needs to be done. And then luckily we have you on that board. So I definitely agree with, I was so happy that Crawford brought up mental health, because that is the issue right now of getting clients that deal with substance abuse, but then they have that mental health part of it. We're not right now addressing them both. And I kind of answered that question. This is my favorite. This is my love, actually. So, did I answer that question for you?
Well, actually, you answered it, but you also initiated a call to action.
Yes.
So there's a problem. So now there has to be some movement toward a solution.
Correct.
And where does that begin?
And that's the question I would like to present to Patrice or Jill's on here. Where I left, I'm no longer with that housing provider, but where I left off was I originally was working with Denise because Dante Blue started the process, but he switched over to Rubicon. So then they connected me over to Fatima to put together like that game plan. So it's really between ORJ and AODS, and I guess whoever's doing mental health, to come together and figure out what that should look like. I'm assuming it's assumption. And Monique or Jill, you can jump in. See, there's Jill here. Thanks, Jill.
So what I would suggest you do, because you have you had the presentation from Marie Scannell from Forensic Mental Health on the housing options there. What I suggest you do is ask Fatima to come and discuss SLE and the potential for dual diagnosis transitional housing, because what you're talking about here is that housing from program to whatever the next step after this is.
Okay.
So I would suggest you have Fatima come, because I'm not sure whether or not Cal AIM is going to address this. I have heard that they are working toward dual diagnosis solutions and recognizing that exists. So that's what I would suggest you do. And then, like you said, establish sober living environments. As you know, I don't need to tell you, but anybody else who may not know, there's a whole variety of them. Oftentimes they're privately owned. Sometimes they're run like Okima House or Oxford House, which is a whole different sort of model. And so SLEs in themselves come in a whole variety. And so our contracts are now through Shelter Inc. Is one way. And then of course we have separate contracts with Oxford House from the AOD. And I understand that they are really working through some of those issues and streamlining the process and getting people directed to the appropriate type of housing, because somebody who maybe qualifies for this sort of environment is maybe a better fit for Oxford House. So they're really working on that assessment and triaging and getting people into the right placements. But I would suggest, because as Ozzy knows, this has been a very, very intense discussion at AOD, and we're not calling them SLEs anymore. They're called
Recovery houses.
What's that?
If they're called recovery houses.
Recovery homes.
Moving forward, calling them recovery houses to match what is being done at the state level. So that's what I would suggest be done, so that you can get a better handle on this piece of that vast puzzle of housing.
I have another question for you that you can probably answer for me. I do agree with that. So Monique, I don't know how we can get, I know Fatima and Ozzy knows Fatima, but I don't know how we go about getting Fatima on the call. Is that something that ORJ would request, or since Ozzy's on that board, or?
Monique should reach out to Fatima and just let her
Okay.
know that you're working on housing options and really looking at, what the CAB wants to fund going forward, and that you would like a presentation from Fatima on the variety of housing options available for those people with both an SUD as well as dual diagnosis.
Okay. One line question for you in reference to forensic mental health, and this is just a question as we're trying to figure out who can best answer these. Love forensic mental health, very familiar with them. My question regarding housing, and I don't know if they address this or not, and someone can let me know, is the process to get into mental health housing once you work with forensic mental health. So one of the things that being housing and working with them, I know that it had to go through like H3 and go through a certain assessment before someone can actually get approved to go in there. Did they talk about that process at all, or did that change? I'm sorry, I wasn't there.
Yeah, so
On-
behavioral health has their own housing navigator. They pulled that from H3. So there's H3, there's AOD, and then there's behavioral health has their own housing navigator, and there has been some work between H3 and them, but it's, I think, a work in progress.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. Awesome. Okay. Those are my
Well, thank you
questions.
for that input. I appreciate that. Nicole and Jill, thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other questions regarding that presentation? I was so sad to miss it. I get very excited about housing. Mental health, sober living, all of it.
Nicole, I'm sorry, Monique, can you scroll back up to the needs? Housing needs.
Is this the slide you're referring to, Ozzy?
Yes, I'm kind of trying to go back, and I know I had an emergency here at my apartment. I live in a senior complex, and our fire alarm went off and I had to leave. My question is around the crisis stabilization beds directly from custody. I see that as a reentry housing need. Are there currently any crisis stabilization beds and any place, and what does that look like? Or what would that look like? Would that be something, a step down from actually going into a 5150 situation? Or is this something like a soft handoff to another intermittent facility prior to going into a full recovery housing situation?
I'm sorry, there was some shouting in the other office, so I missed the first part. Are you asking about the crisis stabilization beds?
Right, and where, what is that?
That might be like Napa State. So where somebody, may be deemed incompetent to stand trial, or they're having a crisis moment that the detention health can't resolve. They might just need something a little bit more than that.
So what I'm hearing you say, Jill, is that it would be more into professional, not an intermittent situation, but a more controlled environment. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So somebody's leaving custody for whatever reason, they might not be ready to go right back into community, or some sort of transportation or transitional. So this would be something to really stabilize them. We have a lot of incompetent to stand trial misdemeanors that just roll through the system,
Okay.
right? They come out and they're really not stable, and then they just
Right.
be incarcerated. So it would be that type of person who really is not capable of caring for themselves, or is a danger to themselves or others.
Okay.
But they can't be held in custody anymore for whatever reason, or they're having a crisis moment that custody can't handle, which I don't know what that would be anymore with M module. So
Thank you for the clarity.
I have a question, Monique. Can you scroll up to where it says reentry options? I think it's a slide before that. Is a question for Jill to see if maybe you know. When did they start? Oh, I haven't seen it here yet since I've been here, but that screening and engagement, straight referrals from jail. So mental health is able to send the direct referrals.
well,
Or
mental health has always been able to do that because we do have detention mental health, right?
Mhm.
And that's a robust system now. And so that the AOD, of course, is Crossroads.
Right. Yeah, I work with them all the time. Yeah, they're pretty cool.
Mental health, detention, mental health are all linked together. So that, you know, at the point in time somebody is held at a detention facility, there's an immediate assessment determination. And if they check the box that says that they have broader mental health needs, you know, they're referred to a clinician. And so all of that stuff starts at the minute on intake. And so ideally they'll know when discharge is, and there could be a discharge plan, but as you all know, sometimes somebody goes to court and gets released the same day. So.
Yep. Okay. Cool. Great questions. Thank you. Any other questions from any of the subcommittee members? No. Okay, Monique.
Yes, I have a question.
Okay.
What's the possibility of us also having a presentation from recovery house? Or because from my understanding, there's more than one type, but could we have a presentation possibly?
That would be Fatima. Fatima would give you the overview of the various houses that people in substance use programming would be eligible for.
So we actually couldn't have a facilitator from the from that specific environment.
Well, there's a whole bunch of them. There are a whole bunch of providers, and they're broad. So Fatima could give you the overview, and then if there's something that you want to hone down more, then you could go from there. But she's our county representative that oversees that entire network. So Shelter Inc. is but one provider, right? And then Oxford Houses is another one, and then I know there's more. So Fatima would be the one who would give you the overview of the variety of recovery housing options.
Well, I understand that I was wanting, because of my visitation, I was wondering, maybe I could talk to Fatima to see if we could get someone directly from those or those facilities. Because I've spoken to someone and it's totally different than the realm that I've heard about. And I've visited one that's totally different from what I'd heard about. And I just wanted to educate other members of the board to see that there's differences, but maybe everyone else knows the differences and I don't.
So I know Oxford House has been in meetings in the past and other meetings and has done a presentation on their program. I think they've been to an AOD meeting pre-pandemic. I want to say now everything's like pre-pandemic and now, right? So they might be a good one. I mean, they're a pretty amazing program. I don't know. I mean, a lot of SLEs, as you know, are owned by individuals. So that would, I mean, I think that would be, maybe Monique could run it by Fatima and just see if there's maybe an operator who she would suggest to come talk about the program. It's kind of a tough one because, you know, we want to make sure we bring somebody that the county is working with versus
Right.
the SLE operator.
Well, you've probably been in the meetings, Jill. There is one specific individual that has been very prominent in AOD meetings, and they have not specifically shared what their owned SLEs are about.
Are you talking about John Dante?
Mhm.
Yes.
So I would run that by Fatima. I'm not sure. I don't know
Okay.
enough about the various operators to know. To
Okay.
say nay or nay on that. So that I would really put it back to Fatima to determine.
Okay, I can do that. Thank you.
Awesome. Any other questions? No? Okay, so if there's no other questions, and those are also questions, thank you for that. And Ozzy, I would love to hear what Fatima says. I'll hold my comments until you hear back from Fatima. I know who all of them are. So I'll wait to see what Fatima says. And I would love to be able to see her present Monique if she can. To one of our subcommittees. That'd be awesome. So we can go ahead and move over to next 5, which is the review of the work plan. So I know there was just some items on there that I wanted to bring it back to make sure that we looked at our work plan and that we've touched on it. That is on page, sorry, everybody. Page 3. No, I'm sorry. Attachment 3,
16.
page 16. See if we have any open items here. So I'll go ahead and leave this open for discussion with us. I just wanted to bring it back to see if there's any open items that we need to address. I know there were 1 and 2 meetings that I didn't make, and I appreciate Ozzy for running those meetings for me. But I just kind of wanted to touch bases with all the subcommittee members and make sure that we're all on the same page and where we are with this work plan. We either start from the top and go down, or if there's some items that you may have that called out that you want to just jump right into, we're open to do it that way as well. And Monique, was Dr. Terrence, you said what time was he joining, or was he still joining? Because I know one of the items I had ongoing was his.
He said 11:15.
Okay.
Dr. Cole's connecting to audio right now.
Okay.
And Lila had her hand up too.
Oh, I couldn't see. Go ahead, Lila. Sorry about that.
No worries. I was looking for the back to the Zoom, so I just used my regular hand. Good morning, everybody, and apologies for being late this morning. So my question is not totally in this work plan, but it's just, when we need to forward the budget suggestions for next year. I was surprised that I didn't see a date for that on this, but maybe it's because we're tracking it in the committee as opposed to this document here.
So Monique, I'll probably lean on you for that one. I know on
Yeah.
our last meeting that we had, everything was submitted, so it should be.
We updated that to July through October. If I'm looking at the right thing here,
Let me go back down.
because I do remember I had updated this for you all.
Yep, well, our original conversation was around July through October, and our goal was to have everything done by September to be presented in October.
That sounds right.
Is that what you're asking?
Yes, thank
Okay.
you. That answers my question. I
Okay.
was just, okay, so, but this is staying July to October. Got it. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, so just take a second, kind of look over this. And again, the last call I wasn't here, so I don't want to make y'all repeat yourself, but did we touch bases on like the key action items for Dr. Terrence or Lila, what you had? If you guys touched on them, that's great. Looking at the notes here on the work plan, I just wanted to make sure because I wasn't at the last call.
I don't think that I touched on that. I don't remember that we reviewed the work plan at the last meeting, but I had a vacation in July, and so
Okay,
yeah, that
you
so
was on
I
the last
don't
one,
have.
that's why. Thank you for jogging my memory.
Yeah.
I had to jog my memory back. You and Dr. Terrence wasn't on it, so that was one of my main
Yeah.
reasons. Sorry about that. Friday brain, sorry. So that was one of the reasons why I wanted to bring, because we didn't have everyone on that last call to just kind of go over it. So I know Dr. Terrence, you had that first one at the top in reference to research and data that was ongoing and identifying specific demographics and things of that nature. So I just wanted to kind of check in with you both for like updates on it and see where we are.
Yeah, thanks, Nicole. I've been kind of lean on producing that information, but I am working on it, and I want to be clear of when I share information that it's palatable, and it's movable, and it's concrete. And so I'm not actually ready to share that information yet, but I am working on it. So definitely let's put that on the schedule for our next meeting to discuss some of that I've produced, and then we can go from there.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, and for the second point about identifying gaps in Cocoa County's criminal justice system and also collaborating with programs and services, we met programs and services just this month, and we reviewed the policy and budget recommendations, and we made a few teeny tiny suggestions there, but I'm really seeing that there's a great overlap amongst the CAB and all the subcommittees with, this continued focus in housing, focus in mental health services, and co-occurring disorder, substance abuse. And then also, I know that within the policy and budget, within the proposed policy notes and talking points that we received, there's also a piece in there about disability. So the Programs and Services Subcommittee has been continuing to seek information and invite providers and be supportive of all of the talking points. And so I don't have anything specific to add or anything new beyond what's already been brought to the full CAB. Thanks for giving us a space and reminding us, to check in on this and take a look.
Thank you. Thank you for reminding me. I had just got back from vacation too, so I was still in vacation break, but I know I had this on my radar. So, okay. Thank you both. Any other feedback from the subcommittee members on the on our work plan? Ozzy or Dr. Van Cook? No.
Okay, the work plan, the portion that I'm responsible for, and that's the report outs on our JOB activities, and the subcommittee that I've been participating with is the data subcommittee. And to date, the last meeting, which was in July, I believe, and the August meeting has been canceled. I think July and August has been canceled, but the next meeting is scheduled for September. But in hindsight of the scheduled meeting dates, what's really going on is there's a conflict with the data and who is going to actually analyze that data. So primarily until the next data subcommittee, I will then understand what they will be doing moving forward. Currently, it's considered technically a little hiatus because Patrice is not here to give any additional input. Maybe Monique, you might have some input for us to help me out here.
Well, they have changed leadership with the data committee. So they have a new chair, Chayla Bonner. And so as of this date, I don't know what the updates are, but they've changed leadership. So I could definitely get some information and email it to you guys what the status is. Jill has her hand up. She may have, if she attended the meeting, she may have information. Because I didn't attend that last meeting that they had.
Yeah, the RJOB data subcommittee meeting did meet in July, and they had an extensive conversation about how to move forward, given they're not getting any more data than they already get from probation, sheriff, and Office of Ed. Since then, the Office of Ed liaison left for another job. The DA representative left for another job. And so with so many changes in RJOB, they decided to kick it back to the full board to kind of discuss how to move forward. And so they gave a few options to the full board, and the full board basically said, you all decide what you want to do. You're the data subcommittee. And so they did cancel August because really they're just getting the same data month after month. We know what the disparities are. I mean, we know what the racial makeup of the individuals incarcerated in our system. The problem is they can't get DA data. They can't get public defender data. They can't get a variety of pieces of data to fill in the blanks. And it, you know, as you all know, it's a continuum. So it's great to have probation. It's great to have the sheriff's data. And it's great to have the Office of Ed, but there's so many holes in the data that they can't put together the puzzle of like, why is there inequity in our system, right? Like what points do the inequities occur, which is really what they wanted to do, is to have the whole fabric of the criminal justice system. On top of that, they do have buy-in from all the local police agencies to provide data. But there is no, and this is what Monique spoke about, there is no, or Ozzy spoke about, there's no place to capture that data. The ORJ is now in probation, and they don't feel comfortable analyzing other police agencies' data. The sheriff's data comes over in bulk, and it really needs somebody to analyze it. And again, probation doesn't feel that it's their role to analyze other agencies' data. The solution to that, we were hoping, was the Office of Reentry and Social Justice, but as many of you might know, that process is taking much, 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 much longer than originally anticipated. And the next report will come to the Board of Supervisors in October, and what they're recommending is to not stand up a county office, to do some sort of other thing for a couple years. And so we're really working internally. At the same time, Supervisor Anderson has joined the Familiar Faces program with, it's a pilot program through the National Association of Counties that you know, works on a broad level to identify blocks in our systems that make it difficult to analyze and collaborate with data. And so all of these things are going on at once, and we're trying to find a solution as quickly as possible to what to do to get over that hump and find a place where we can have an impartial data analyst that has to be within the county, because county data can't be shipped off outside of county. So it's just a very complex matter. And so that's where the data subcommittee decided to pause and say, rather than keep doing the same thing month after month, let's take a pause and regroup. So that's where we're at. That's a very, very long-winded way to explain it all. Sorry.
But thank you, Jill. I'm just so happy that you could explain it. And I really understand it a whole lot better now.
I agree, Ozzy. All right, thank you. Ozzy, that actually took us into the other item on our agenda, was to have you give an update. So thank you for that. You read it right into agenda item number 6. So if there isn't any other questions regarding our work plan, Ozzy already covered agenda item number 6. We could talk about our next steps and items. Is there any other feedback or questions regarding the work plan that we need to address?
I did have one more question. This is Lila again. And I was wondering if there's anything that we need to do in preparation for next month when we will be finalizing the budget, that we'll be submitting. Monique, Jill, Nicole, any thoughts? I believe that that's all, packed into the agenda. I'm just taking notes, and I want to make sure that I understood that we need to do our budget next month and be proactive and see if there is anything that I can do to help prepare myself for that process next month.
I will see if Monique can help me with that, but I have been working with Patrice. From what I understand, we're on track. I don't think there's anything else that I need to or we need to provide, but Monique can correct me if I'm wrong. And Patrice isn't here for me to kind of lean on to help me with that feedback, but she's been pretty much putting the package whole thing together, and from taking our recommendations from that and putting it all package dealing that, because I had the same question you did last month, because I felt like there was something that we were missing, but she's actually packaging it all. So from my understanding, no, but if I'm wrong, Monique, correct me, because I know we have the charter to talk about, but outside of that, I don't think there's anything else that we need to put together. So I think we're okay.
Well, really, at the next CAB meeting, you'll be discussing information about the budget and recommendations. As a body, you'll be discussing it in preparation for the next CCP meeting, which is on the 16th.
Right.
So I think since Crawford is on the call, Crawford, you can correct me if I am misquoting it, but it appears to me that that's the meeting where you all will be collaborating as a body to state what you would like to see, to recommend to CCP in preparation for your budget. Is that correct, Crawford?
Yes, and in fact, Patrice and I will be meeting this afternoon, and we're going to go over the presentation that we'll be making to CCP for CAB, and we're going to try to have a little glitch in there. When I say glitch, it's a positive one, where we're going to try to have one or two other people to assist with the presentation. And I've already drafted talking points that they can work from. And in fact, both of you are on this call. Nicole and Lila. So it's kind of interesting. So it's just a draft, and and it will be kind of in a Word document. And we'll see how Patrice reacts to it. Okay. She may say no, that she just wants me to give the whole thing. But I thought it would be kind of neat if we are a team and leadership. If Nicole, you could have a role, Lila, you could have a role, and then we're working as a team. So
well, I don't mind. You can let her know I volunteer. So I mean, if you have some points that you want me to go over, I'm perfectly okay.
Great. And again, they're just small bullet points. Okay. Don't worry.
I'm not. Okay. I know you know how to separate it, so it's fine. I won't leave you out there alone. I'm more than happy to to jump in.
Okay. Now remember, you are my wing.
I know. So whenever you tell me you need me, I fly right on in. I'm here.
Thank you very much.
I'm a thumbs up too, and I'm glad that I asked that question. And it sounds like a lot of this work, happens behind the scenes and outside of the subcommittee spaces, but it's all input and work that's come out of these places and spaces. And so to be clear and make sure that I am understanding what the presentation will be about for CCP, this is the talking points or the policy and budget recommendations?
It'll be the policy and budget recommendations intertwined with our talking points. And once Patrice and I go over it, we'd be pleased to send you a copy. You will get the entire flow of how it will work. And Ozzy, you're on the call. It's very similar to what you and I did last year when we developed a flow for our meetings with supervisors and other CCP members.
Wonderful. And then I think the document that I'm trying to narrow in on and get more clarity about is the budget. And so can folks speak to how that document will move through the CAB again, I'm sure I've asked this question before, and go to the CCP or where we're at in that process now?
Okay, I'm not in the loop on the budget part. I'm just strictly on the policy and budget recommendations. And I believe you'll be working on budget, and then all of us will come together on that, and we'll put a format together so that everybody's participating appropriately.
And then I wanted to mention that although you and Patrice are meeting today, Crawford, and then you have the three of you will be, it sounds like, the primary speakers at the CCP. At the September 8th meeting, the full body will have opportunity to chime in and provide any input or recommendations on the flow. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Okay,
Always open.
right,
So-
right,
so-
okay.
So Lila, I think I know what you're asking, because I've had that burning question mark in the middle of my forehead as well, to making sure that we're not missing any of those steps. So I could definitely check with Patrice. The last meeting that I had with her outside of this, it's kind of like what you said. She's taking the information that we're gathering from our call as a committee, and she's actually behind the scenes putting everything together, which included that budget piece. But I'll check in with her, because last call that we had, I had the same burning question. I felt like there was something else that we needed to put together, but there wasn't. She was doing it behind the scenes. So I can definitely check in with her. Monique, after the meeting, if there's anything else that she needs from us for that part, but she's actually putting everything together behind. Does that make sense? So I can, either me or Monique, I don't know, Monique, let me know. We can follow up with her regarding, is there anything else that we need to do next month for that budget part?
Absolutely, I'll check in with her.
Wonderful. And it sounds great if there is a document, if we could see it, in development next, or the final version at the next meeting. It'd be great to be tracking with, what it's looking like now.
Okay, I agree with that. Thank you for that. Thank you for that question. All right. Any other questions before we move on? Okay. If there is no other questions, we can move on to number 7, which is our next step, the CAB policy and budget charter.
So
we-
Nicole, let me mention this. So we put that as a next step for the next meeting, because we weren't sure if you were gonna run out of time,
Right.
but you certainly can look at it now to review it, because I do have it.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. So Crawford, do you want to give an update on why we're adding the charter
Yeah, I was
information?
wondering. Thank you, Monique.
Yes, I'd be glad to. Last year, we attempted to have an ad hoc committee. In fact, Terrence is on the call. He was part of that effort. And it was maybe too much of a rush effort. We did our best. We were able to get some items in place. And so this year, what we've opted to do, and when I say we, it's kind of on an informal basis. I've been working with Dale Harrington. And we have gone through the charter, the basics of the charter, and we took into consideration some recommendations that were made in previous years. And then it dawned on us that we don't want to start making recommendations for the various standing committees. So therefore, we asked each of the standing committee chairs to review the policy, or pardon me, their charters. And in this case, that would be the policy and budget charter. And just to go through it and see if it can be shortened, should it be lengthened? Are there items that could read a little better? And then we would move forward and bring this recommendation back to staff, who in turn then would work with the county. We have to work with county legal to see how it all comes together. And we wanted to do it, and again, in a deliberate format, so that we're not rushing anybody, and we go through the proper steps and we make sure that we're all in lockstep with each other. So that was the purpose of the review.
Okay, thank you for that, Crawford. So we do have enough time to kind of look at it now, but I'll, check with all of the subcommittee members to get your ideas. It's only one page, right, Monique? I mean, we can actually look at it right now and see if there's any recommendations or changes that we see on here that we may want to give. Everybody's okay with that?
Hold on, Nicole, we're still reviewing.
Oh, no, not okay with the document. Okay with us looking at it today. But thank you, Dr. Cole.
Oh, yes, sorry.
This looks good to me. If we're ready to start talking about it, it is bringing something to mind that might, it might be another one of my weird questions where I'm just confused and I don't want to, go down a rabbit hole or spend too much time on it. Kind of going back to a little bit our conversation on budget and what the purpose of for us is that I feel like I've picked up somewhere along the line that there's a lot of AB 109 monies and that services that are not directly related to, AB 109 participants or folks who are most impacted by that want to get access to some of that money. And part of what this subcommittee needs to do is to think about, are we okay with that? Do we have new suggestions of where this extra money is going to go, or if there is extra money? I know at one meeting there was a conversation that that a program that is predominantly geared towards supporting immigrants in legalizing their stay within the United States was going to be asking for more money from the pool. And so it's something that feels very unfinished for me. And I wonder if we will have a space and a place to, is there extra money? If so, what is it? And are there other things we can say we want that money put to? And I think we can, I just don't know if we have like the specifics about where we want to send the money. So this is very unformed, but it's in just my reaction to our charter and to, where we're at in our CAB year and our, subcommittee timeline.
Hey, Jill, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, you got that from me, Lila. Thank you for trying to protect my anonymity there, but once said in a public meeting, it's public knowledge. So yeah, there's a very large discussion at the board of supervisors level about the immense amount of reserves in AB 109 and how much should be had. They decided to cancel the September Finance Committee meeting of the Board of Supervisors where this was supposed to be discussed because it lands on Labor Day. And I do believe they'll take this up in October. There is a larger discussion that's not privy to the public at this point in time about what AB 109 funds can be spent on, and that's being determined at the county council level, which may address the other issues. We'll see when they figure it out. So that'll all be part of that finance committee discussion. And so I would just say be poised and be ready to to lay out some suggestions about where you might see the gaps and where you might see that spending going to. I know Patrice is having a larger discussion as well, because I looped her into it from the ORJ perspective, to be part of that discussion with Paul Graves at the county administrator's office. So she might have a better update next time you see her, but I don't think there's anything today to do on that, but it's definitely something to be poised and ready for.
Thank you so much, Jill. That was really helpful for me to realize that I'm not making stuff up or totally missing different things. Now, in your experience, Jill, and maybe other folks' experience, do just general recommendations like, please put this much money towards housing. Do those tend to get more traction or less traction than we have this program that is delivered and designed, or, we've painted a picture of, and we want you to use these funds in this way? Or do kind of both suggestions work in different scenarios?
So specifics are always good. And I think that you guys just got that behavioral health housing. And so Marie identified gaps there. And then hopefully you'll have a presentation from Fatima so that you can identify if there's any gaps there. And really what you're looking at is that reentry population, because that's been the hugest issue, right? Is like, where do they go? The appropriate housing for them. And so I think that you stay focused on the actual gaps, not sort of big dreams. I think big dreams don't get you very far. Specific actions are more easily funded. Specific programs are more easily funded. If you say, hey, we need restorative circles, let's just say, I mean, I don't know, I'm just making something up. Then if you say we need, behavioral health services. Right?
So Jill, can I piggyback and ask a question to you? So, and again, Lila, I'm so glad you asked this question because my pen is just all these bullet points here. So like you just said, making actual suggestions in from data like forensic mental health or AODS. Would it be a good idea for someone like Jana from GPS to possibly do like a presentation from the data that we captured from individuals that are currently in here getting released, or we see those gaps? Would that be something as well? Because I know that she provides information directly to Denise about the gaps that we see. And as you were talking, a million of them were going off in my head because I see them every day. So that could be something, maybe we can find different programs such as Forensic, Fatima, GPS, and others that can provide that data to the subcommittee so that we can be ready to give those proper suggestions.
Oh, and that's huge. And I just, Supervisor Anderson has a monthly meeting of Christy, the director of H3. And I mentioned yesterday that, GPS just came out with data saying that more than 50% of their participants are homeless, and she had no idea.
Yep.
And so I think having that data from Jana, I mean, that program is amazing and what she's able to pull out. And that's just those people who are able to participate in programming, right?
Correct. Yes.
So, I mean, that's huge. So I think those are incredibly significant.
Okay. So Monique, even though I'm sitting right next to Jana, is that something that you'd like to reach out to Jana about? Because it will come from CAP. Okay.
Yes, I can definitely do that.
Okay.
So I have a question, and I'm just going to jump right in. It could be the inappropriate time for the question. So we'll just say it's a statement. I'm very concerned about attending the finance committee, CCP's finance committee, in lieu of the requests for the additional funding. And the reason why it's particularly special to me is because in 2021, I believe that organization came before the full CAB and did a presentation requesting an adequate amount of funding. And a question that I posed was regarding data and
I'm so sorry, Ozzy. They just set off the, I work inside of the jail. So I don't know if you can hear the alarm.
I hear it.
I have to go, y'all. I'm so sorry, Monique. What do you want me to do? Because I have to leave out the building.
Well, we still have a quorum, so you could just mute yourself or.
Okay, I'll mute it.
But Ozzy can finish the meeting. since
Okay,
she's
I have
the
to go
vice
because they
chair.
said I have to get out of here. Okay, I'm muted.
That's amazing. The same thing happened to me last
Yep,
full cab meeting.
yep.
I get it. So anyway, my statement of passion is that I'm definitely going to attend that meeting because, as I said previously, I had posed a question relative to data in regards to what the statuses were for those individuals that they were representing on an immigration status. And I understand, and moving forward, I've had the discussion. I know that I'm not going representing CAB, but as a concerned community member. So I'm planning on being there at that specific finance committee just to interject my humble opinions about what I would like to see AB 109 funding dispersed for and what populations.
And I
So
just for the record, that the finance committee is a subcommittee of the Board of Supervisors, not of CCP.
that's what I was gonna say too, Jill.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, and I believe Jill said the next one is canceled for September. So I think it's November 4th is the date that they gave me. Cause I emailed it to you, Ozzy. I think it's November 4th, so that would be the next meeting.
Well, that's not the next meeting, but is that the agenda they're putting it on, Monique?
Well, when I reached out to the representative at the Board of Supervisors, was that the date I gave you, Ozzy, November 4th, or there was a date, it was,
Yeah, the next finance committee is October 3rd. So what sounds like what he's saying is this, no, it would be November 4th. It would be November 7th.
okay,
It's always the
Okay.
first Monday of the month. So what they're
okay,
saying, agendized for that meeting agenda.
okay, all right.
So am I hearing it correctly? November 7th is the meeting
Yes,
and not October?
I will send an email to Paul just to confirm that, Monique, and then I'm sure that whatever he gave you is correct. I just want to make sure it's okay in my calendar as well.
okay,
And I mean, I think that this charter of policy and budget is a great charter. It's very expansive. I think it's a hard litmus test to me, and from like year to year with our work, you know, with different folks changing over. But I'm good with this charter as it stands, and I like, you know, reviewing important documents periodically in the year of the subcommittee to just kind of, yeah, take a look and see how we're doing, you know, based off of this.
I also concur with the charter as well, and I see the outline and it's very informative. I think this is the first time that I've actually had a visual, and I see that the committee is moving in all of those specific directions. Is there any other input on this item?
Hey, Ozzy, is Carpenter still on? Yeah, Crawford.
Yes.
So this emerged out of the ad hoc, correct, Carpenter?
Yes, sir.
And it was based on kind of an oversight, right, for what was happening, you know, on the ground and what we could see kind of in the presentation of what was happening. And we did an ad hoc because we wanted to find out what was happening behind the scenes. Is that correct?
I'm not sure. Remember, we were on that committee together. I'm not sure what the genesis was, other than we were following operating at the direction of Michael Pitts.
Mm-hmm.
And our goal, at least now, was to, as I stated, we wanted to simply review to see if we were in step and then move forward, because there are other steps before we can in effect codify this again.
Got it. So the goal of this is not just the oversight, but to kind of identify,
Yes.
okay, objectives and long-term goals. Okay, got it.
Yes. And now, Dr. Cole, if there's some items that you think should be added then this would be the time. Or,
Okay.
or if you think there's something, well, it may not be appropriate at this time, then, let's take hypothetically, if we had an item G. Well, if we had an item G, we don't, and you felt that item G should be eliminated, then the recommendation would be to eliminate it, and then we'll take all of this to the full cab board naturally, and then to legal and see what our next steps would be.
Okay, I guess my question would be, is this what's the timeline on the completion or if this is a living document? What I mean by that, living and breathing, we can add to, take away as we go, or we're going to stamp this as an approval and it's done after we do the consideration and move it to the general board.
Yes, we would have to stamp it. And when I say stamp it, it would be, this is your recommendation at this point in time. And then we would kind of bring all of this together. We would go to staff. And then from staff, we come back to the board. And then from the board, we have to go to county legal. So we wanted to kind of just do it step by step. And we don't want to, and what we were trying to avoid was we attempted to make some changes last year. And the difficulty was we wanted to make one or two quick changes and then come back and make other changes. And Dale and I, in just talking, said, well, look, why don't we approach this a little differently? Let's walk, or better yet, let's crawl, then we'll walk, and then we'll run. And that's the process, Dr. Cole, that we are attempting to have at this point in time.
Got it. Thanks for the clarification. Do we have a timeline?
No, that's just it. See, that's the good part.
Got it.
We want to do this right. We want you to be comfortable. And once you're comfortable, then we will get policy and budget committees, charter. You will present that and say, this is what we think it should be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we
Excellent.
want, again, this is bottom up, not top down.
Perfect. Thanks, Crawford.
You're welcome.
Welcome back, Chair.
Thank you. It's had a little scare here, so I'm back. Sorry, you all. Where are we leaving off? You can continue.
So the discussion is still on the charter. There's been input discussion made. And so I don't know if there's any further discussion on it. Technically, this was a next step item, but we had time in the meeting. So we're at about 17 minutes left in the meeting. That's a time check. So this would have been the final item, unless you want to discuss further next steps. And if you like, I can talk about the presentation for September.
We can do that. I mean, my feedback on this, I'm kind of on the same on the gate like Lila was. I'm okay with the wording. She made some really good points, and just discussing what those next steps are and what we're working on. I know there's a few follow-up items, but I'm okay with you doing discussing the presentation as well.
Okay, so Nicole, you had a request at the previous meeting. This would be a next step, and the charter could also still be a next step if members want to provide feedback. You know, the discussion was made today. If members want to provide feedback on the charter, for any additions or subtractions, but you had the last meeting you talked about the Employment Fair Housing
Yes.
Act, I believe. And so I reached out to Charles Brown at the Workforce Development Department, and he, pending approval, he will be able to present at the September meeting. I'm waiting for a final confirmation, but that could be a next step as well.
Okay,
the presentation.
okay. I think Jill, you have your hand up.
Yeah, so I just heard back from staff that the stand together item is actually going to the full board, which was my understanding. So I'm getting further clarification on what is going to be discussed at the finance committee. So I don't have a date for the full board. I've asked. I don't have one. So when I do get that, I will share that with you to share with the group.
Thank you. So yeah, that's thank you, Jill. So you can put that one as the next step. I know we had a few things to follow up with Patrice about.
And this
But
is
go ahead.
oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Nicole. This is just connected to what Jill was just speaking about. I mean, like I wonder if Stand Together could make some effort to include folks who are in reentry in their services in order to continue to request, funding from AB 109 or increased funding. I don't know if that's part of what's going to happen. It just feels like we've gone from some members of the CAB like, oh, they're already getting this amount of money and now they want to get more. So I maybe that possibility has already been considered. I wonder if there are, points of overlap, with immigration and with folks, who are AB 109 and reentering the community. So just something to put out there.
Okay, and to not go into a back and forth if you guys want to agendize this for a future meeting, but just to be clear, there isn't a nexus between Stand Together and AB 109. When somebody is being represented by a public defender, they have the right to, under their criminal charges, to be represented by a public defender if they can't afford an attorney. And their immigration status should be taken into account when those criminal charges are being discussed. The other piece of it, the representation in a removal court, is a totally different subject, and that's a bigger issue. So I recognize what you're saying, but I think this is a bigger discussion that's happening on a more legal level to determine the proper use of AB 109 funds. Not to say that that program shouldn't be funded somewhere else. It's just the question of whether AB 109 funds are appropriate funds.
I have a question, and I always know that there's no stupid question. My question is whether immigrations is federal or state. If it's a federal or state issue.
Federal.
Anyone know?
Federal.
Federal. Okay, thank you. That's what I thought. Oh, the other question. There are federal public defenders, correct?
No. If somebody so there's two systems, right? The criminal justice system. Anybody, regardless of their immigration status, has the right to legal representation if they can't afford an attorney, that one will be assigned to them. In immigration court, that's if you can pay for it or you can attain legal services through a whole variety of organizations that provide them, that's a whole different system.
Those was great questions, Audie, because I didn't know either. So thank you for asking those questions.
I'm just fueling my my little presentation so that I have all my I's dotted and T's crossed.
So I just got confirmation that at the August 16th Board of Supervisors meeting, Supervisor Mitchoff stated that Stand Together Contra Costa would be on the agenda for the September 13th Board of Supervisors meeting.
Thank you for that, Jill.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or items that stand out we want to discuss? Monique, do we want to go over our next steps, or you have what?
So I may have stated it before you came back, so it looks like the next steps, you can definitely go over the charter again. You know, members might have feedback, the discussion took place today, additional feedback, and then also the presentation from Charles Brown, once that's confirmed. And then members may have updates on the work plan. And as well as your next meeting is on the 23rd. So the meeting with the Board of Supervisors would have taken place on the 16th. Did you say the 16th or the 13th, Jill?
Tuesday, the 13th. There's always
The 13th. Okay, so the 13th, the meeting would have taken place by then. Then the CCP meeting, that would have taken place. And of course, your CAB board meeting is on the 8th. So maybe some feedback from those meetings can be some next steps.
Yes. Let me review my list here. I'm gonna, I know you may do it as well, but I was gonna check in with Patrice regarding the budget to see if there's any other items on there.
Okay, and Lila has her hand raised.
Go ahead, Lila.
I think there was one other presentation that we lifted up and discussed having. I'm trying to land on, oh, we talked about potential presentations for recovery houses as well.
From Fatima, right?
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay,
And add GPS on there, Monique.
okay, all right.
That's it. If we have any other key items we want to go over, we're down to just a few minutes left. I can't see it. No. Okay, Monique, I think we have a couple minutes left. I think that's it. If there's no other comments or anything, feedback or any items to go over, am I okay to adjourn to our next meeting? Okay, so if that's it, there's no other questions. I'm trying to see if I see any hands up or items. I think we have our next steps for our next meeting. With a couple of minutes left before 12 o'clock, we can adjourn to our next subcommittee meeting, which is September 23rd at 10:30. So everybody get back to a couple of minutes to your Friday. Okay.
Have a great weekend, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.